Good morning, class 12s. Welcome back again. In this class today, I'm going to continue with the chapter on water resources and irrigation. Okay. In the last class, I don't know, I think most of you have not seen it. You better go through those explanations that I have done. Okay. So in the last class, I explained to you all about the importance of water resources. What are the schemes that has been adopted by the government to conserve water? Okay, so all those topics were different kinds of water harvesting schemes and all were being discussed. Okay, so those were the things that was being done in the first half of this chapter on water resources. Now I'm going to start with the second part of this water resources chapter, and that's irrigation. Okay, now as I have already told you all, again coming back to the same point, repeating the same point. India being an agricultural country where it's also been referred to as a country of endless growing season, where throughout the year crops are being grown, different varieties of crops are being grown in different parts of the year, okay, and all these crops which is being grown in the country uses water. There are some crops which uses maximum amount of water, and there are some crops which can survive in less amount of water. But water is very, very important. And having said that, the amount of water that we receive in India is from the monsoons, and the monsoons confined only to around 4 to 5 months in a year. Okay, major part of the country sees rainfall only during this period of time. So rest of the month is almost dry. So in these dry seasons, okay, crops are being grown. Therefore, artificial supply of water is essential for the growth of these crops. Okay, and that artificial supply of water is known as irrigation. So irrigation is a must. Okay, and there are different ways of irrigating the fields. Okay, there are different measures. There are different types of irrigation that is being practiced in India. The irrigation system in our country is being divided into modern and primitive methods. So in this topic, I'm going to discuss about irrigation and different methods of irrigation, advantages and disadvantages, and few states in our country where these type of irrigation is being found. Okay, now please open your textbook and once again follow the text. Okay, everything is not important, as I have told you. Since the syllabus has been reduced, okay, there are only few things that has been asked, so it's very essential for you all to have your textbooks in front and underline those points which I am explaining it to you. Okay, now first thing is the definition of irrigation. Okay, irrigation in India, as I have told you, irrigation means artificial supply of water to agricultural fields. Okay, and it may be through canals, wells, tube wells, tanks, etc. Okay, and these water are from rivers. Okay, so the waters are from rivers. It may be from underground water, it may be from rainfall. Okay, so demand of water for irrigation in India. Irrigation is a must, importance I've told you. Okay, so why do you think the demand for irrigation is very high in our country? There are several reasons. Okay, the three important reasons or four important reasons I'm going to explain it to you all. The demand for water is very high in our country. The reason behind is because number one, uneven distribution of rainfall. The rainfall that we have in our country is unevenly distributed. Of course, the rainfall we receive is almost 4 months in a year. Major part of our country is receiving rainfall except the east coastal region of our country, or the coastal areas, east coastal regions, which receives rainfall from the retreating and receives rainfall from the northeast. Besides this, other parts of our country receive rainfall only in the month of June, July, August and September. So the rainfall that has been received, okay, in June, July, August and September is also not the same. Some areas are getting heavy showers of rainfall and some areas are getting very less amount of rainfall. And sometimes it so happens, you know, those areas which are supposed to get heavy rainfall are getting less, and those areas which are supposed to get less rainfall is getting heavy showers of rainfall. So in this way, the distribution of rainfall is uneven. So in those areas where the rainfall is supposed to be high, okay, or in areas where rainfall is high, crops like rice and all which is being grown, which is also a crop which requires plenty of water. So sometimes when there is scarcity, okay, when there is scarcity, like take for example in one particular area rainfall is high. Because of the high rainfall, climate conditions that is suitable for growth of rice. But because of uneven distribution of rainfall, sometimes what happens is that area might receive less amount of rainfall. And whatever amount of rainfall that has been received by this area may not be enough for the growth of rice. In that case, irrigation is a must. Okay. The second one is temporal distribution of rainfall. Temporal distribution of rainfall means rainfall is only confined to few months in a year. Like for example in India, it's only in the month of June, July, August and September. Almost 4 to 4.5 and 5 months in a year. So with this amount of rainfall that has been received in few months, when that water is not being utilized for the growth of crops throughout the year, unless and until water harvesting schemes, water harvesting schemes, storing of the water and all that has been done, then only it's possible. Okay, then another important point that you can remember is uncertainty of the rainfall. Uncertainty of the rainfall out means the exact arrival of the monsoons. Okay, according to the meteorological department, the first week of June is the exact time for the arrival of the monsoons. Like for example, the 1st of June, the first shower of the rain should be there in the state of Kerala. Because Kerala is the first Indian state to receive the rainfall. Okay. Now that's the time, the exact, according to the Met Department, that is the exact time for the arrival of the monsoons. But the monsoons are not arriving at the same time. Sometimes you have early monsoons and sometimes you have the later arrival of the monsoons. So if it's early monsoon also, that is very dangerous because you have excessive rain. If it's late arrival of the monsoons also, you have scarcity of water. So that is also very, very dangerous. So uncertainty of the rainfall is another important reason why demand for irrigation is very high in our country. And there's another factor in your textbook, high yielding crops and the nature of the crops. Nature of the crop, then there are some crops which requires more water. Like for example, I've already mentioned this to you that rice requires plenty of water. Okay. Whereas on the other hand, millets is a crop that requires less amount of water. So millets has to be grown in an area where the rainfall is less, and rice has to be grown in an area where the rainfall is very, very high. Okay, and that's one of the reasons behind why millet is also referred to as a dry crop, because it can survive in an area where the rainfall is very, very less. Okay, so these 4 to 5 points. There are other points also. I think 4 to 5 points that I have discussed with you all is enough for demand of water in India. Why irrigation is a must in a country like India. Okay. Now we come to the next one, sources of irrigation. Now, as I've told you, irrigation means artificial supply of water to agricultural fields. Okay, irrigation, there are different methods of irrigation that is being practiced. One has been categorized under primitive method and the other one has been categorized under the modern method. Now, primitive means old, modern means the new concept that has been adopted. Okay, the new method that is being used. Okay, so primitive methods are the wells, tanks, and inundation canals. Modern methods are tube wells, perennial canals, as well as you have sprinkler irrigation, you have drip irrigation. Okay, so these are some modern methods. Okay, now let's start with the first one, the primitive method. The first primitive method, that means the old method of irrigation, is well. Now please underline this definition. A well is a hole that has been dug in the ground to obtain a subsoil water. An ordinary well is around 3 to 5 meters deep, but it can go deep up to 15 meters. Underline this. Okay, and there are various methods to uplift the water from this well. Okay, and these methods, underline this, is called the Persian well, Rahat, Charas or Mort or Dingli, which is with the help of a lever. Okay, and this is very, very popular, especially in the great Indian plains of our country and the deltaic region of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri. So these are the important things that you have to remember. It's already there in the textbook and there's nothing much to explain. Okay, now we come to the next, any 2 states. You have to remember, you don't have to remember all the states, but any 2 states, you can go for Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. So these are the 2 important states in our country where you have more of well irrigation. Okay, so along with this, another very important question on wells that they might ask you is that why do you find more wells in the northern regions of our country? Okay, states like Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, these are the states where the well irrigation is common. Okay, so they might ask you why. So the reason behind why is because The soils are very soft, porous, it allows the water to seep through, okay, and that water which is being percolating, seeping through, it's getting collected in underground water table where the water has been pumped out. Okay, that's very, very important. Okay, then we come to advantages of well, at least any three. Okay, three advantages. So just put a tick mark. Okay. Now, well is the simple and the most cheapest source of irrigation, number one. Number two, it's an independent source of irrigation. Okay, and it can be used when and wherever it's necessary. Okay, and you can also see that several chemicals such as nitrate, chloride, sulfate, etc. are also mixed with the water, and that chemicals which is being mixed with water, which is soluble in water, adds to the fertility of the soil. So these are the advantages. Now disadvantages is that you cannot irrigate large acres of land. The land is limited. Okay. Then you can also see that sometimes when excessive water is being taken out, or when there is high temperatures and all that, the well tends to dry up. So that is also becomes useless. Okay. And another one is well irrigation is not possible in the area where the water is brackish. Underground water is brackish. Underground water is brackish means water is there underneath. Okay, that water has been there, but the water is brackish in nature. Brackish means it is salty in its nature. So in those areas where the water is salty, underground water is salty, water cannot be used for irrigation. So that's the that's the well irrigation. Now you come to the next method is called the tank irrigation. Now tank is also water storage, okay, which has been developed by constructing a small bund. Bund means a wall of earth or stone across a small stream. Now remember, when you're talking about a tank, it's not a tank that you have on top of your roof or on top of your houses, rooftops. Okay, we're talking about a tank which is like a lake or a reservoir. Okay, so especially in a stream, small minor stream where the water is being flowing and the wall is being constructed, and then that wall that is being constructed is acting as a storage, a reservoir, and creates a lake kind of a feature. Okay, and that is called a tank irrigation. Okay, and the tanks are very, very big also. The reservoirs are very huge. Okay, so that's tank irrigation. And you can also see that there are states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Tamil Nadu, which has large number of tanks in South India. Okay, so in this context, before I come to the condition that has been required or why Peninsula India has more of tanks and all that, what is important for you all to remember is that if you see the distribution of these tanks and wells and all that, you will find more of tanks in South India and more of wells in North India. Okay, I have already explained you all why more of wells in North India is because of the soft rocks that have been found over there, which allow the water to seep through and all that. Water percolates in and then water gets collected and all that. Okay, and in South India, you have more of tanks. The reason behind this is because the surface itself is undulating. That means if it's a flat level land, and when you have to dig the earth, okay, and tank has to be made, you have to spend a huge amount of money. Understood? But in South India, what has happened is the land itself is undulating. The topography, the type of landform that you find over there itself allows formation of a tank, because the land is not flat like this. You have slight elevated lands like small hills, okay, and then you have a land which is being depressed. Okay, that is a depression is being created, a hollow is being created. So in those areas, the hollow is already being created, water gets accumulated there. So the water gets accumulated there. Okay, and one of the most important plus points is that the water which gets collected over there, since it is made up of South India, is made up of harder rocks. This is the igneous rocks that we have, the rocks that has been formed by the volcanic eruptions. So the rocks that has been present over there are harder. Okay, now since the rocks are harder, it does not allow the water to percolate. Water seeps through, but it is not very, very soft, which allows the water to seep. Understood? So the water gets collected. Since it's not allowing the water to seep through, the water gets collected there and forms a lake sort of a feature. Okay, and that's a tank. Okay, so you'll find more of tanks in South India. This is a very common question that you have in your ISC. Why well irrigation is more in the north and tank irrigation is more in the south. Okay, that's another very, very important factor. Now, whatever point that I've explained to you, it's already there. The tank irrigation is practiced mainly in Peninsular India due to the following reasons. Now, please underline at least 3 to 4 points. One is the undulating relief features with hard rocks. Okay. Number 2 is there is only little percolation, that means it only allows little water to seep through, otherwise the water just gets collected there. Most of the rivers are in this areas are seasonal and dry up during the summers, therefore water has to be supplied throughout the year with the help of this. Okay, and you can also say scattered nature of population and agricultural fields also favors tank irrigation. Okay, so these are the factors. Now, merits of tank irrigation. Most of the tanks are natural, do not involve heavy cost, and it means cheaper. Okay, even an individual farmer can have his own tank. Number 2 is that. Okay, and the tanks are generally constructed in a rocky bed, therefore it has a longer span of life. That means can last for a longer period of time. Third point, and wherever water is getting collected over there, that water is not only used for irrigational purposes, but you can also carry on with other activities like fishing. Okay, fishing can also be practiced by the farmers, which acts as a supplement for their income. Okay, those are the merits. And the disadvantages or demerits of the tank irrigation is that now since tanks are open in a huge area, the water is just open, it may dry up very fast, but the rate of evaporation will be very, very high. Okay, so most of the tanks dry up. Okay, and fails to provide irrigation when it is essential. Okay, another problem is silting of the dye tank is a serious problem. Okay, the silting means when a river water that is being collected in a tank, has a lot of deposits of silt. The reason behind it is because let me tell you this. Now, tanks are usually constructed along the streams and all that. So when you're talking about the streams in small rivers and nalas and all that. So when whichever water, like the flowing water that you have, flowing water always carries silt with it. Okay, and if you take a handful of water, you always see the water is not crystal clear. You always see small particles that is being carried by the water. So these particles are the silt materials, and it's being carried. Okay, it's being carried by the water. Okay, and it's getting deposited in the bed of the tank. So when the material is getting deposited in the bed of the tank, deposition is taking place one on top of the other, so it increases the bed of the tank. Okay, which is leading to overflowing of waters in the tank. So that also may be a disadvantage over there. Okay, and another thing that I've already told you is that much of the water has been evaporated. Okay, then tanks also cover a larger area. Which otherwise might be used for cultivation purposes. Okay, so these I think 4 points more than enough for the demerits of tanks. Got it? Now we come to the next method. Okay, that is called a modern method. When you're talking the modern method, we are giving importance to the tube wells, we are giving importance to multipurpose projects. Okay, we are giving importance to drip irrigations and all that. Okay, so modern methods of irrigation. Okay, that's the improvement that has been taking place in irrigation system, where from primitive method by making use of technologies and by making use of modern methods like by making use of electricity and all this method has been uplifted. Okay, and it's been modernized, and it's easy to operate and provide regular irrigation regular irrigation to much larger areas. So under this, the first important thing is the tube well. Definition of tube well has been given in the text. Please underline this. A tube well is a deep well, okay, deeper than 15 meters, where the water is getting lifted with the help of a pumping set operated by an electric motor or a diesel engines. Okay, when you're talking the tube well, it's not like a well. Well is open, you dig the earth and all that, but tube well, it's boring. You have a boring machine that goes inside and digs the earth. Okay, and then machine is being drilled, and with the help of an electricity or with the help of a diesel motor and all that, water which has been underneath is being pumped out. Okay, so that's the tube well, and the advantage of the tube well is that it supplies more water than the wells. Okay, now another important thing that you have to remember is that it has to be constructed in an area, okay, where the groundwater is more. At least it generally should irrigate more than 2 hectares of land per day. That's the condition that is being required. Number 2, the water level should be nearly 15 meters. Okay, there should be a regular supply of cheap electricity or diesel, otherwise tube wells cannot function. And another important point that you have to remember when you're talking about this tube well is that wherever a tube well has been constructed, very close to it, you should have an agricultural fields, so that water which is being pumped out with the help of these tube wells can be easily used in the fields. Okay, so that it becomes cost effective. Okay, so these are some of the measures or conditions or factors that will be required before you construct a tube well. Okay, now tube wells are mostly been confined again like the wells in Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana. So these are the states where you have more of tube wells. Advantages is that it irrigates 10 times more than an ordinary well. It operates with the help of an electricity. Okay, so water can be easily drifted from greater depths. Okay, now tube wells are also independent sources of irrigations. So whenever a farmer requires water, he can use it. Okay, like the waters that you have from the wells, tube wells also has water which contain a lot of chemicals, because it is coming from underneath the earth's surface, where you have layers of rocks, and these rocks are, it's made up of lots of minerals, and there are some minerals which gets easily dissolved in water, and that water containing a lot of minerals, when it comes to the surface, it adds to the fertility of the soil. Okay, then you have the disadvantages. Disadvantages, you can say that farmers have to spend money regularly on electrical and diesels. Okay, the source of irrigation is not fit in an area where water is being brackish. Okay, and then another thing is that the tube wells can draw more water, so sometimes excessive water comes out. Okay, and that may lead to the depletion of the groundwater table. Okay, so these are some of the disadvantages. Now we come to canals. Okay, another important source of energy that we have are canals. Okay, now canals, as you know, it's where the earth is being dug. Okay, where wherever you have a perennial flow of water, wherever you have this perennial rivers, the earth is being dug and a nala is being made. Okay, that nala, which is much more bigger, nala is being made, and that from where the water flows. Okay, that's the canal. Okay, and like the tube wells, you will also find canals mostly confined to the northern regions. Again, coming back to the states like Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh, and all the states. Okay, so these are the important states where canals are being constructed. Now, when you're talking about this, let me just explain it to you. There are two types of canals. One is called inundation canals, and the other one is called a perennial canal. Now, inundation canal out here means a canal that has just been constructed. Constructed from the rivers, where the water has been, nala has been dug and the water has been flowing through those nalas. Okay, without any proper regulating head. Okay, there's nothing from where the water enters those canals. Okay, you should be having a regulating head. There's something to regulate the flow of water. So in an inundation canal, that regulating head is not been there. So what happens is, when there is excessive water in that river, that overflowing water only is being flowing through those canals. When the water is excessive, that only at that time will have waters in the inundation canal. But perennial canal is different. The same process, a stream is being flowing from there, a canal is being dug, same. But in perennial canal, the word perennial itself means there is a regular flow of water. Whether the volume of water in the river is more, whether the volume of water in the river is less, there is a continuous flow of water in the canal. And the reason behind why is because you have a regulating head. You have a regulating head, a gate sort of a thing in the the point from where the water flows. So that regulating head supplies continuous flow of water there. Okay, so that is the difference between perennial and inundation canals. Now you have state-wise. Okay, so there are a few states, not all the states that you have to remember, but there are a few states, and in each state you just remember two canals. Okay, like for example, the first state that you have to remember is Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh has large number of canals, and in Uttar Pradesh you just remember Upper Ganga Canal. Okay, and this canals will just go through this Kanham. Okay, Haridwar and Uttaranchal. You can just say the main canal is 342 kilometers, okay, and provides water to Saharanpur and Meerut, like that much. Then you come to the next canal, Lower Ganga Canal, again taken out from the Ganga River near Narora, okay, and you can see it irrigates Aligarh, okay, and Fatehpur, that much. Then you come to states like Punjab, any two canal out here. You can underline Upper Bari Canal, okay. Upper Bari Canal taken out from River Ravi, okay, and irrigates around 3 lakh hectares of land in Gurdaspur and Amritsar district. Then you come to Barkha Canal, right down. It's taken out from Satluj River, irrigates large hectares of land in Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan. Then you come to the next state, that is Haryana, Western Yamuna, okay, that canal taken out from the Yamuna River. Okay, and then you underline Ambala and Canal are the areas where it gets water supply. Next is Jui Canal, or you can go through Barkha Canal also. Then you come to Andhra Pradesh. Okay, Andhra Pradesh, you can just underline this. In Andhra Pradesh, you have this Nagarjuna Sagar project, multi-purpose project, which is providing water to those areas from Krishna River, especially in the Nalgonda district. Okay, and Guntur, just that much. Then you come to Tamil Nadu. Next is Tamil Nadu, where you have 29% of the left of the area under this. Okay, and then you have any two Metur canal system from the Metur Dam, and next is the Lower Bhavani project, that much. Then you come to Maharashtra, you can underline Mutha project. Okay, you can go through this Mutha project, or you can underline this Pravara canal also. Okay, so these are the states and these are the two canals that you just remember. Merits of the canals, again out here, advantages is that it provides perennial irrigation facilities. Canals carry a lot of sediments which is being brought down by the river, adds to the fertility of the soil. Canals are also a part of multi-purpose projects, okay, and they provide cheap source of irrigation. The initial cost for constructing a canal is expensive, but for the long run it is much more cheaper. Demerits out here is that it leads to the problem of waterlogging. Please underline this. Waterlogging means excessive accumulation of water. So when a canal is being flowing, okay, the canal carries the water, but sometimes when there is excessive water from that canal, the water overflows. So that water which overflows, leads to accumulation. The water goes in different areas, and then water, instead of seeping through, most of the water seeps through, but in some areas the water gets locked, it gets collected. So that water which gets collected is very, very dangerous for agriculture, because it eats away the roots of the plants. Because excessive water is not, when any crop that is being grown, there are some crops which require plenty of water. But whatever amount of water that is being required, if that crop is getting more than what it requires, it eats away, destroys the roots, it destroys the crops. So canal irrigation is leading to this problem of water logging, because water logging is very, very disadvantage, very dangerous also. Okay, and another important demerits of the canal irrigation is, please remember, like when there is overflowing of water in the canals, as I've told you, water overflows and goes in different directions. Some of the water gets seeped through, some of the water flows away, but most of the water gets accumulated, leading to water logging and all that. Another one is when the water gets collected, it leads to a breeding ground for mosquitoes. It becomes a marshy tract of land also and breeding ground for the mosquitoes. Okay, and canals may also lead to flooding of the neighboring areas, and canal irrigation is suitable only in the plain areas. So these are the disadvantages. Okay, now you come to the next modern methods of irrigation, and that's called sprinkler. Okay, now please underline this. This is the method of irrigation where a pipe is being fitted with a nozzle on the top, okay, and it's been used through which water is being spread directly to the required plants, and it's also called an overhead irrigation. Now you've already seen a sprinkler. A pipe has been there. You have a pipe connected with a nozzle, and then there is where the water supply is there. The thing spins, and you have 2-3 nozzles over there, and the water rotates and the water gets distributed. That's called a sprinkler. Okay, and it's also called overhead irrigation, and this type of irrigation mostly being practiced in an area where there is less amount of water. So whatever amount of water is being there, it's been economically used. Okay, so in an area where there is less amount of water, okay, less amount of rainfall and all, sprinkler irrigation is being practiced. So you can just underline this. Right. I think the advantages and disadvantages out here is not being mentioned properly. So I just want you all to write down the advantages. Advantages of a sprinkler: there is no wastage of water. Okay, and there is no loss of water through evaporation. There is no wastage of water through seepage. Also, there is no wastage of water through evaporation. Demerits: expensive. Okay, helpful only in small areas. And it is useful only for those crops which requires less amount of water. Okay, so that's the advantages and disadvantages of a sprinkler. Again, since it is not been given you point by, let me just again explain it to you. Advantages of sprinkler is that it prevents loss of water through seepage and loss of water through evaporation, and disadvantage is expensive. Okay, it's only helpful for smaller areas of land. It does not cover a larger area, and it is only good for those crops which require less amount of water. Not possible for those crops which require plenty of water. Okay, so that's the advantages and disadvantages of a sprinkler. Now you come to the last topic, and that's the dangers of overwatering. Now, overwatering out here means excessive water. Okay, you have to remember that when you're talking about overwatering, one thing that you have to remember is that the farmers are with the concept. Okay, let me just tell you this. Like, for a growth of a plant, okay, there are 3 major factors that is very important. One is the temperature, one is the rainfall, and the other one is the type of soils. Soil plays a very important role. Climate conditions has to be suitable, and the most important factor is water. Okay, so the farmers are with the concept that more water has been supplied, more better the crops are being growing. But that's wrong. Okay, so whichever plant has been grown, that according to the amount of water that has been required by the plant, the water has to be supplied. So when excessive water has been supplied, okay, to those crops, it leads to waterlogging, okay, or it leads to overwatering. So overwatering or waterlogging and all, it's very, very dangerous, because if that area has been overwatered, it destroys the crops. It may lead to waterlogging. It may lead to salinity, alkalinity, okay, soil erosion. Okay, it may also lead to a process called leaching. So these are the drawbacks of overwatering. Okay, so let me just read some few sentences underlying that. In some parts of India, water meant for irrigation is not properly utilized. Farmers tend to flood their fields with water with an intention of getting a bumper crop. This happens especially in areas of canal irrigation, where the farmer wants to get the maximum benefit from the money that he has spent to use the facility of canal irrigation. So that's the concept of the farmers. So they have, invested a large amount of money in constructing the canal. So the water, what they think is that they want to make a maximum use of the water from the canal to the crops, thinking that they will get a bumper crop, but that's wrong. So overwatering, or process of overwatering, or feeding the crops with more water may lead to a serious problem. Number one is salinity and alkalinity. Okay, and this has already been experienced in states like Punjab and Haryana, where there are large number of canal irrigations. Okay, so a lot of salt, content, which is especially the chlorides, the sulfides, the sodium and calcium, which has been there, comes up to the surface and makes the area unfit for agriculture. Okay, the next problem that is that has been created by overwatering is waterlogging, which I've already told you. Excessive water that is being present over there, water does not seep through, but it just gets collected. Okay, and it either makes that area into a very marshy tract of a land, or water has been just collected over there, and that excessive water that has been collected over there eats the roots of the plants and destroys the crops. Okay, and another important thing that you can remember is that it also needs leaching. Leaching is removal of valuable minerals that has been present in the soil called silica. So when excessive water has been present in the soil and valuable minerals like silica has been washed away, the fertility of the soil has been lost, so crops cannot be grown. And another important thing that it may lead to soil erosion. Soil erosion means removal of the fertile material from the topmost layer of the soil. Okay, so these are the dangers of overwatering. Okay, but in order to solve this, there are various steps that have been taken. Number one is reclamation of the saline alkaline areas. That means in an area where there is too much of salt, content like sulfides and chlorides and calcium and all that. If too much of this there in the salt, they have to remove this excessive salt from there. Okay, so they have already taken steps to make this to remove the excessive salt from the soils. Okay, and they have started with using green manures and gypsum, sand and all that, molasses, press mulch, bleaching. All the steps have been taken. Okay, and central government is also providing them with some schemes of reclamation of this aligned soil, especially in states like Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. So in one hand, excessive water that is being present is leading to all this problem. On the other hand, government has taken various steps to solve this problem. Okay, like reclamation of the saline and alkaline soils and all that. Steps have been taken. Or if excessive salt is being present, they are removing that. Okay, if leaching is a problem that's being created, they are taking various steps to control this. Okay, soil erosion, like making of those bunds and all those steps are being taken to prevent shelter belts and all that's being done in order to prevent the soil from being eroded. So those are the steps that's being taken for protecting the crops from land from being overwatered. So with this, we finished with this chapter on irrigation. Okay, so now I've just told you whatever is in the syllabus. I've not gone into details and all that. Whatever the syllabus is asking for it, demanding for it, I've gone through that. And state-wise distribution of this canals and all that. I've just mentioned 2 states. Okay, and 2 canals and 2 states and all that, and well irrigation and also only 2 states have been asked. The advantages and disadvantages, also maximum of 4 points has to be remembered. Okay, so with this, I finished with this chapter on water resources and types of irrigation. And I hope you have